I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, Trump on trial, an important day in the hush money allegations against the former president. We have a report from New York. Eye on the election. What new polling numbers are saying about the race for the White House. The war in Gaza. Why a somber holiday in Israel may not slow down the fighting. Plus, honoring thy mother. Pope Francis has a special message for the faithful and especially moms. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima. Our top story tonight, from Trump insider to company outcast Michael Cohen. He is now the center of it all as he testifies in the former president's hush money case. And a pivotal day, the prosecution's key witness came face to face with his former boss. Cohen directly implicated Trump in the hush money scheme, saying everything required Mr. Trump's sign-off. Cohen testified that Trump approved hefty payouts to stifle scandalous stories that could have harmed his 2016 White House campaign. And for more on today's court proceedings, let's go to Associated Press journalist Michael Sisak, who was inside the courtroom today. Michael, good to have you with us. So what was Trump's reaction when Michael Cohen came into the courtroom and during his testimony?
It really was a subdued reaction from Donald Trump and Michael Cohen. They avoided eye contact, avoided looking at each other. While this was very highly anticipated testimony, it lacked sort of the theatrics surrounding it that we might have expected from a Cohen-Trump showdown in court. Cohen on the witness stand at one point was asked to identify Trump, and he did have to kind of lean over and then stand up and identify a piece of clothing that was Trump was wearing, his tie. But other than that, Trump stared straight ahead most of the time. He kept his head down, looking at articles that he had printed out for him, reading through those. Not a lot of interaction, body language or otherwise, between Trump and his former lawyer, Michael Cohen.
Yeah, tell us what Cohen said on the stand.
Yeah, Cohen is the key witness, really the key to this whole case against Donald Trump. And prosecutors were strategic in bringing him in right toward the end of their case. He directly tied, according to his testimony, Donald Trump to the hush money deals at issue in this case, and then also really the charges in this case, which are falsifying business records. Now, we haven't heard all of Michael Cohen's testimony yet, but he talked about how Trump, according to him, Trump signed off on the reimbursements that he received from Trump's personal account, totaling $420,000. Cohen talked about how he met with Trump Organization finance officer Alan Weisselberg to go over how he was going to be repaid. And he said it was Weisselberg who came up with the idea to pay him not only the $130,000, the hush money repayment, but also another bill that he was owed, a $60,000 bonus. And then they raised all of that up. They grossed it up, they said, so that Cohen could take all that money, declare it as income, not a tax-free reimbursement, and wouldn't be out any money on taxes. And he, according to Cohen, right before they broke for the day, he said Donald Trump approved that plan and the payments, which were made in $35,000 monthly checks.
Michael, how did the jury, how did they react to Cohen's testimony?
Yeah, the jury was locked into the testimony all day. You saw jurors taking notes, looking back and forth between the prosecutor asking questions and Cohen answering them. They maybe were not as enthralled as they were when Stormy Daniels was on the stand. That was a little bit more of a feisty testimony, but they certainly were engaged. They were looking at the monitors in front of them when they showed evidence, call logs, emails, text messages pertaining to these events at issue in this case. And they were, again, as I said, focused on Cohen and really taking in what he was saying. It seems as if they were, much like us, anticipating this key witness and really were interested in what he had to say.
All right, we're going to leave right there. Michael Sisak in New York for us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Early polling suggests the former president's legal battles aren't hurting him when it comes to voter support, at least not yet. According to today's New York Times Siena polls, with the help from the Philadelphia Inquirer, the former president leads in 5 key states, including Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, and in Georgia. He is also ahead in Nevada, polling 50% to President Biden's 38%. Meanwhile, President Biden is leading in Wisconsin, 47 points to Trump's 45. Well, President Joe Biden's top national security advisor addresses reporters today in the briefing room as the Biden administration delivers some of its strongest public criticism yet of Israel's handling of the war against Hamas. It warns that Israel could face an enduring insurgency if it doesn't come up with a realistic plan for how Gaza is governed after the fighting is over. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
The Biden administration says Hamas has reemerged in parts of Gaza and that there has been a horrible loss of life of innocent civilians. And in the White House press briefing room today, I asked the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan about the hostages. As the war between Israel and Hamas continues, smoke seen here billowing from inside a refugee camp in northern Gaza after an IDF bombing. In the White House press briefing room, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan lays out the major concerns of the U.S. as the war grinds on.
We still believe would be a mistake to launch a major military operation into the heart of Rafah that would put huge numbers of civilians at risk without a clear strategic gain.
Aid workers are struggling to distribute dwindling food and other supplies to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians displaced by what Israel says is a limited operation in Rafah. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees says 360,000 Palestinians have fled Rafah over the past week.
The Palestinian civilians caught in the middle of this war are in hell. The death and trauma they've endured are unimaginable. Their pain and suffering are immense. No civilian should have to go through that. This is on the president's mind every day.
Months of internationally mediated talks over a ceasefire and hostage release at an apparent standstill. Israel has refused Hamas's central demand for an end to the war and the withdrawal of its forces from the territory. And tonight, as the death toll mounts, the U.S. State Department issues this update.
We're going to continue to work at this. We continue to think a ceasefire is possible, one that is coupled with the release of hostages and additional humanitarian aid.
And in Israel, Memorial Day, at a ceremony, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowing once again to defeat Hamas and to bring home the hostages. As we sit here 7 months into this war in Gaza, how confident are you as you stand there that the hostages, the remaining hostages, will come home, A, and B, how many of them do you believe are actually still alive?
I cannot give you a clear number of how many are still alive because we do not have total fidelity on that, unfortunately. And it's something that we watch every single day. We know there are deceased hostages, and we know there are living hostages.
Sullivan also told me with each passing day, the risk to the hostages goes up. So they want to get a ceasefire and hostage deal done as rapidly as possible. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, now to the war in Ukraine, where only a few hundred residents remain in a northeast border town amid fierce fighting. Ukraine's president says troops are locked in intense battles with the Russian army in a border area. Local officials say only between 200 to 300 people remain in the town as Russian troops attempt to surround it from 3 directions. This as Russian authorities say a Ukrainian shelling collapsed a section of a residential building in Belgorod. Well, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey began his second bribery and corruption trial in 7 years today. He and his wife are facing charges that they traded their political influence for hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes, including gold bars and a new car. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the latest. Eric.
Good evening, Tracy. As you mentioned, this is the second corruption trial in Menendez's Senate career. He was previously indicted on unrelated federal bribery and corruption charges in 2015. Now, that case was ultimately ended in a mistrial in 2017. This time he faces 16 charges, and it's already cost him the powerful gavel of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, in addition to support from his own party.
Are you running again?
Jury selection began today in the corruption trial of New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. Prosecutors say he and his wife accepted gold bars, cash, and a luxury car as bribes to aid 3 businessmen in his home state, and that the favors influenced his interactions with Egypt and Qatar. Menendez's lawyers say he stayed within the rules and did nothing illegal. Back in January, the New Jersey senator took to the Senate floor to claim his innocence.
The sensationalized allegations are now creating a rising call for my resignation, despite my innocence, and before a single piece of evidence has even been introduced in a court of law.
According to court documents that were recently unsealed, Menendez may try to blame his wife Nadine for the corruption charges, claiming that she kept him in the dark about her dealings with the businessmen who are all charged in the case, and he knew nothing about the bribes for helping the governments of Qatar and Egypt. However, authorities did discover gold bars in Menendez's home, along with envelopes and cash, more than $480,000 in the senator's suit jackets, with fingerprints and DNA of all involved. On Capitol Hill, both sides are taking a wait-and-see attitude.
I think that he deserves his day in court, and that if he says that's not true, then the onus is upon him to show that it's not true as well.
The Senate has certain standards that we must live up to. I am very disappointed that Senator Menendez has not lived up to those standards.
I've been calling for that sleazeball has to go. Now when you're polling at 4%, why are you hanging around at this point? You have no future, but I can't imagine why we can keep him around.
The embattled senator says that he will not be seeking re-election as a Democrat, but hasn't ruled out the possibility that he could run as an independent. Meanwhile, his wife, Nadine, is facing 15 counts and will be tried separately as she receives treatment for a serious medical condition. Her trial is tentatively scheduled to begin July 8th. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including targeting the faithful, a scary moment at a First Communion Mass in Louisiana, and how quick thinking helps stop a possible tragedy. Welcome back. Some quick-thinking parishioners at a Louisiana church were able to avert a crisis after a gunman opened the back door during a First Holy Communion Mass. Live stream video from St. Mary Magdalene Church captures the moment the priest learned of the danger. Parishioners disarmed the suspect, pinned him to the ground until police arrived. A 16-year-old was charged with terrorizing and 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a juvenile. The Bishop of Lafayette, Louisiana said, quote, "We are thankful to God that a tragedy was avoided." And with a closer look at church security is Carl Chin, president of the Faith-Based Security Network and author of Evil Invades Sanctuary. Carl, great to see you again. First, I want to get your reaction to what we saw at the Church of St. Mary Magdalene in Louisiana and that quick thinking by the parishioners. What do you think?
Well, I think they did a fantastic job for what they had to work with. I know I've heard they didn't have any intentional security folks there, but I'm not sure that's exactly correct, because some of the folks, the way they were acting there was right on cue with how we would recommend security people act.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about that, Carl. I mean, what would you recommend in a situation like this? How would you diffuse it?
Well, again, what they did, as I understand, and of course news is just coming out, they confronted him just outside as he was coming in that back door, and were able to detain him there, and maybe just barely inside the door, but regardless, they were able to interrupt his plans. And you know, the only 3 things it takes for somebody to commit a crime is the ability, the intention, and the opportunity. And we have no control over their ability or their intention. All we have control over is their opportunity. And somebody there took the opportunity away from that guy.
Yeah, and it's a shame that we even have to discuss this, that people have to think about it. But for those of us, when we're sitting in Mass, I mean, what advice would you give us to kind of be aware of in a potential situation like this?
This is such a great example of, and it leads right into the advice we give churches and synagogues and all kinds of houses of worship, is have intentional security. Have people outside, because the majority of these attacks either started or happened in their entirety outside the sanctuary. Have somebody that's watching the doors, that can watch for things that don't look right and be able to intervene.
And Carl, do you have any examples of churches or synagogues that have successfully implemented security measures and averted threats? Oh,
absolutely. Many, many, many. And, Of course, the one that really launched me into this was our own church in Colorado Springs. We had armed security. We were there. We stayed long after the normal service was over. And in our case in Colorado, the gunman came about 40 minutes after the service had entered, but we still had about 700 people on campus. And we were able to meet that gunman and stop him. He did kill 2 people before we were able to. And that's just one of many examples of churches that were ready and did something to prevent further violence.
Carl, I know you've been doing this for a while now. It seems to me, at least, that there has been a rise in violence at churches and synagogues around the country. Have you seen that? Or is this a pattern? And what do you think is behind it?
Yeah, it is a pattern. There is more violence, and I know there's people that say, "Oh, it's been here all along," and there has always been violence associated with churches. That I don't disagree with. What's changed, however, is the frequency of it. And one example that I give is we had never had a mass murder in a faith-based organization in the history of the United States until 1963. A mass murder is 4 or more killed in one incident. And in 1963, 4 little girls were killed by dynamite at a church, 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. 187 years of American history, it had never happened. When the killer killed in the Covenant School in Nashville a couple of years ago, that was the 17th mass murder since 1963. None in 187 years, now 17 in 60 years. So what's changed? I think there's a cultural shift in this country that is no longer honoring anything sacred. I think we've had moral decay that has taken our eyes off God and Christ in our lives.
And we need prayers for sure.
Absolutely, we do.
We got to keep on praying. Carl, thank you for coming on. Always appreciate your insights. God bless you.
Thank you. You too.
A court in Pakistan has annulled the marriage of a 17-year-old Christian girl. This after she was kidnapped and forced to marry her captor and convert to Islam. The case involves Rima Salim, who was abducted on the way home from 8th grade and later in 2019 was forced to marry a neighbor. A family court says Rima did not willfully marry her abductor and was coerced to do so. Sadly, this is not an isolated case. According to UNICEF, over the next decade, 100 million girls are at risk of being forced into child marriage. There are also threats for young women from religious minorities of being forced to change their religion. And here to discuss the story is Temina Arroyo, Director of Advocacy in Asia for ADF International. ADF International supported Reha's legal defense and leads advocacy efforts for the prevention of forced marriage in Pakistan. Temina, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. So tell us a little bit more about Reha's case and the significance of this victory.
Yes, thanks, Tracy. Thanks for having me. Reha was just 16 when she was abducted by her Muslim neighbor, Abbas, and she was kidnapped while she was coming back home from school. And this man told her that he would burn her face with acid if she didn't sign these documents, which basically meant she was signing over her faith, and also that she was now saying that she was legally married to Abbas. Somehow, Reha managed to flee from that home. It was 2 months later. She had been sexually assaulted repeatedly, but she managed to flee. She managed to get back to her home thanks to the intervention of a stranger. And that's when she reached out to ADF International, and we were able to file these petitions before the courts asking for her marriage to be annulled, for prosecution, criminal prosecution against her abductor through our allied lawyer, Sumaira Shafiq.
This is hard for, I think, most people watching this to understand that this actually happens. Can you give us a sense of how common this is?
Sadly, it's way too common. It is estimated that every year in Pakistan alone, over 1,000 girls are forcibly abducted and married off like this. It happens repeatedly. Religious minorities are particularly vulnerable.
And is there anything that these young women and their families can do to protect them from being forced into marriage and conversion?
So one of the things that these girls and their families need to do and are doing is to be able to stand up and fight these cases. Riha and so many others like her have testified in courts in spite of the tremendous dangers they face. So that's incredibly tough, but they do it, and that's important. But it's also important to keep your documentation correct, church records, birth records, school records, all showing that these are minor girls, often 12 to 15, who are abducted. So keeping those records intact is incredibly important, and filing these cases is incredibly important also.
Yeah, and before I let you go, I mean, what's being done globally to slow this disturbing trend?
I think it's incredible that more and more you see countries and international institutions speaking out. I mean, everyone recognizes that no girl should suffer these horrors, and no one should be forced to convert and marry their abductor. So you have very recently, for instance, the UN Special Rapporteur, several of the experts speaking out against this practice in Pakistan in particular, so calling on the government of Pakistan. And even within Pakistan, you've seen a movement towards a law that would allow for a uniform age of marriage across the board, which means that girls young as 15, 16 will no longer be forced into these marriages. At the moment, Pakistan has these laws only in certain provinces, but now we're talking about a law across the country, which would be incredibly helpful. So great movement in the right direction, but so much more to be done.
Yeah, Tim, and I thank you for coming on and telling us about this important case, and thank you for the work that you do at ADF. God bless you.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, crowning achievement, how a piece of a church seemingly lost to history suddenly reemerged. Plus, Pope Francis shares a special Mother's Day message with the faithful gathered at the Vatican. Foundation gathered government officials, scientists, athletes, artists, and children to discuss human fraternity, but also to look for alternatives to wars and poverty. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser has more.
Children, celebrities, and Nobel Peace Prize winners. Hundreds of people were brought together in Rome for the World Meeting on Human Fraternity. Organized by the Fratelli Tutti Foundation under the name Be Human, the conference spanned 2 days, May the 10th and 11th at the Vatican. It involved 12 thematic roundtables with experts to discuss some of the most pressing issues of our contemporary world from the perspective of fraternity. Topics such as sustainability, education, health, and social media were discussed by the participants, which included women, men, and organizations awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, as well as human rights activists. All of it inspired by Pope Francis's encyclical Fratelli Tutti. The Children's Table was organized as part of the preparation for the upcoming World Children's Day on May the 25th and 26th in Rome. Pope Francis attended one meeting entitled Children, Future Generations. It featured a tender moment with the Holy Father and dozens of children crowned with laurels. The Pope engaged in a game of questions and answers with the children, asking them to define happiness, peace, and friendship.
Nella guerra c'è felicità? No. Dov'è felicità? Non ho sentito bene. Bravi.
In his address to the little ones, the Pope stressed that the future of humanity depends on young and old working together.
The future of humankind rests on two pillars, the young and the elderly. This will be the future, because grandparents impart their wisdom to us, while children learn from the wisdom of grandparents. Grandparents have a whole past that enriches us, while children inherit a future shaped by the past.
At the end, the Holy Father signed a copy of the Children's Declaration on Fraternity, a declaration written by the children themselves, expressing what fraternity means to them. In Rome, Andreas Tannhauser, EWTN News Nightly.
Pope Francis reminds the faithful to pray for all mothers, especially those who have died.
Farsi vicini a chi soffre, questo è il passo dopo passo.
In his Sunday address to pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father asked for a round of applause for all mothers. He also reminded us to ask for help from the Blessed Virgin Mary in our life's journey, saying that she will help us walk with joy toward the glory of heaven. Finally tonight, a church in Detroit has a unique lost and found story. It recently discovered an item that had been missing for more than 40 years. A crown with 12 stars is part of the Immaculata statue at St. Hyacinth. It was recently discovered after 44 years. The statue originally adorned the altar at a parish that later closed. It was moved to St. Hyacinth, but the crown was lost. The discovery last week left parishioners overjoyed. The 100-year-old statue was built by the man who also created the famous Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil. Last week in Detroit, the Immaculata was given back its crown in a ceremony dedicated to the month of Mary. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night, and God bless.
Thank you.